Adolf Hitler, the rise, rule and ruin of a dictator. Adolf Hitler remains one of the most infamous figures in human history. His life and actions reshaped the 20th century, leaving behind devastation on a scale rarely seen before. Understanding Hitler is not about fascination or admiration, but about confronting the dangers of extremism, propaganda, and unchecked power. This is the story of how an ordinary man rose to absolute power, led a nation into catastrophe, and became responsible for immense human suffering. Early life and formative years. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria-Hungary. His father, Alois Hitler, was a strict customs official, while his mother, Clara, was gentle and deeply caring. Hitler's childhood was marked by conflict with his father, whose authoritarian personality left a lasting impression on him. As a young man, Hitler dreamed of becoming an artist. He moved to Vienna, hoping to study at the Academy of Fine Arts, but he was rejected twice. These failures deeply affected him. In Vienna, Hitler lived in poverty and isolation, exposed to radical political ideas, nationalism, and anti-Semitic propaganda that were common in the city at the time. These influences played a critical role in shaping his worldview. World War I and radicalization. In 1913, Hitler moved to Munich, Germany. When World War I broke out in 1914, he volunteered for the German army. Serving as a messenger on the Western Front, Hitler experienced the brutality of trench warfare. He was wounded and temporarily blinded by a gas attack. Germany's defeat in 1918 devastated him. Like many others, Hitler believed the nation had been betrayed from within, a myth later known as the stab-in-the-back legend. This belief fueled his growing hatred toward political opponents, minorities, and especially Jews, whom he falsely blamed for Germany's problems. Entry into politics and the Nazi Party. After the war, Hitler remained in Munich and became involved in political activity. In 1919, he joined the German Workers' Party, which later became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party. Hitler quickly rose within the party due to his powerful speaking skills and ability to manipulate emotions through propaganda. In 1923, Hitler attempted to seize power in the failed beer hall putsch. He was arrested and sentenced to prison. While incarcerated, he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a book outlining his ideology. The text revealed his extreme nationalism, anti-Semitism, belief in racial hierarchy, and ambition for territorial expansion. Rise to power. After his release, Hitler changed tactics. Instead of overthrowing the government by force, he sought power through legal means. The Great Depression of the 1930s created massive unemployment and despair in Germany, allowing the Nazi Party to gain popular support by promising national revival and stability. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Shortly afterward, he moved quickly to dismantle democratic institutions. The Reichstag fire was used as a pretext to suspend civil liberties. Political opponents were arrested, and Germany became a one-party state. By 1934, after the death of President Paul von Hindenburg, Hitler merged the roles of Chancellor and President, declaring himself Führer, the absolute leader of Germany. Totalitarian rule and propaganda. Once in power, Hitler established a totalitarian regime. The Nazis controlled the press, education, art, and culture. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, created a powerful system that glorified Hitler and demonized enemies of the state. The regime promoted the idea of Aryan racial superiority and enacted discriminatory laws. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripped Jews of citizenship and basic rights. Other groups, including Roma people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and LGBTQ individuals, were also persecuted. Fear and loyalty were enforced through organizations like the Gestapo and SS. Concentration camps were established to imprison and eliminate perceived enemies. Expansion and the road to war. Hitler pursued aggressive foreign policies aimed at expanding German territory, a concept known as Lebensraum or living space. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria and later occupied parts of Czechoslovakia. European powers attempted appeasement, hoping to avoid war. On September 1, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. This act triggered World War II. Hitler's early military successes were rapid and shocking, as German forces conquered large parts of Europe using blitzkrieg tactics. The Holocaust, one of the darkest chapters in human history, occurred under Hitler's rule. The Holocaust. Nazi ideology led to the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, along with millions of others, including Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, Roma, and disabled individuals. Extermination camps such as Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor were built specifically for mass murder. The Holocaust was not an accident of war, but a planned and organized genocide carried out by the Nazi state. War turns against Germany. Despite early victories, Hitler made catastrophic decisions. In 1941, he launched an invasion of the Soviet Union, opening a massive Eastern Front. The harsh winter, logistical failures, and strong Soviet resistance led to enormous German losses. As the United States entered the war, the balance shifted. Allied forces began pushing back from both the west and east. German cities were heavily bombed and morale collapsed. Hitler increasingly isolated himself, refusing to accept reality. He dismissed generals, ignored strategic advice, and relied on unrealistic hopes for victory. Fall and death. By 1945, Berlin was surrounded by Soviet forces. Hitler retreated to his underground bunker, where he spent his final days detached from the suffering around him. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler committed suicide alongside Eva Braun, whom he had married shortly before. Germany surrendered days later, marking the end of the war in Europe. Legacy and lessons. Adolf Hitler's legacy is one of destruction, hatred, and mass murder. His rule resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people and left Europe in ruins. The consequences of his ideology continue to shape global politics, ethics, and historical memory. Studying Hitler is essential not to glorify him, but to understand how economic crisis, propaganda, fear, and prejudice can allow authoritarianism to rise. His story serves as a warning of what can happen when democracy collapses and humanity is divided by hate. Conclusion. Adolf Hitler was not a monster born in isolation, but a product of specific historical, social, and political conditions. His rise demonstrates how fragile societies can be manipulated, and his fall reminds us of the catastrophic cost of extremist ideologies. Remembering history is a responsibility. Only by confronting the past honestly can future generations hope to prevent such tragedies from happening again.